So let's continue with, remember this 6 marks. Time yourself. You're going to do that 6 times 1.8 minutes maximum. Requirement B is asking us to discuss whether CSC Co should breach the agreement with Encompass Health. 4 marks can do me a lot of good in this exam. Requirement that says discuss, a discussion has got a yes and a no side and a conclusion. Discuss. Yes, they should breach the agreement with Encompass Health. No, they should not breach the agreement with Encompass Health for so and so and so reasons. Conclusion. That's your opinion. If the yes is more, from the foregoing analysis, the agreement with Encompass Health should be breached. If the no is more or weightier, no, from the foregoing analysis, the agreement with Encompass Health should not be breached. Very simple sentences. Discuss whether CSC Co should breach the agreement with Encompass Health. Many people don't like these questions. They like calculations every time. What do you think with the evidence before us? Oh, this section of the scenario relates to requirement B. 1 month later, the supply of bitter is still limited, and CSC Co is considering whether it should breach its contract with Encompass Health so that it can optimize its profits. Now, the optimization of profits is happening because, you see, when we're determining the optimal production plan, we prioritize the contract with Encompass Health, although in the ranking it came last. So we were not optimizing profits. We were not. We were giving attention to shakes for Encompass Health when we knew that it was the last in the ranking. But should we go ahead with this thing 1 month later when bitter is still in short supply? What do you think are some of the reasons you go for yes or no? As a business person, I was telling somebody just yesterday, when we train for accountancy, people think it's all about going there to prepare accounts for people, audit people's accounts, do tax issues. Accountants have started talking about technology long ago. Accountants have started talking about sustainability issues recently. Now, sustainability is introduced into all ACC exams now. What is sustainability? Taking care of the present, but making sure that we don't deny the future generation of taking care of themselves. So if you have an environment where, for example, sorry, I'm going a little beyond this, but I'm talking about something that is in the PM syllabus. If you have an environment where people are looking for money to feed themselves, take care of their families, because of that, they engage in galamsey, illegal mining, and pollute our water bodies. And the system does not discourage them and make it a deterrent. And so people must eat. That's okay, people will eat. But will future generations get water to drink? If no, then what you are doing is not a sustainable thing. Accountants are taking sustainability issues very seriously. And sustainability has nothing to do with preparing a statement of profit or loss. So if you don't follow sustainability issues, very soon, Ghana, for example, will have to start importing drinking water. And you can imagine what it means to import drinking water. Whether rich or poor, you've got to get potable water to drink. So if you go to import, then it means that only the rich will get water to drink. So why did I go beyond this discussion? I'm saying to you that if you have a contract to supply Encompass Health and you are faced with difficulty and they're asking you, stop the contract, should you do it? No. because Encompass Health can sue you. You've got to understand that basic thing about business. So don't stop the contract with Encompass Health because you face limitations. Should I stop my contract with you guys because I have a problem I cannot teach? No, I have to find a way of teaching, because that was what I promised you when you came on the course, that I'll teach you up to this point to go and write your exams. I've got to forget about my problems and teach after that, face my problems. So we're talking about business here. No, don't breach the contract, lest there could be legal consequences for CSC Co. Then I'm going to CSC Co, and I'm going to write it in full sentences. So when I'm sending a note to you, I'll do that. No, don't breach the contract. Otherwise, we would be seen, CSC Co would be seen to be an unreliable supplier. As a matter of fact, that was how you were going to see me if I stopped midway and gave you all manner of excuses that we cannot go on with the course. You see me as an unreliable person, you won't come back to me again, and you are never going to recommend friends to me anymore. So we will be seen to be an unreliable supplier. Think about performance management, and this will result in lost sales in the future. Yeah, this will result in lost sales because of that. Let us not stop the contract with Encompass Health. I've got 2 points. There are 4 marks. By this time, I'm slowly grinding to passing the requirement, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine. I'm content with that. Can I go a little more than that? Reputation is at stake. If you stop the contract, you lose goodwill before many people, including Encompass Health and future prospective customers. Lost goodwill is not good for a company's performance. Well, yes, stop the contract because the Encompass Health contract is being sold at a discount. And selling at a discount is loss of money. If I sell to you a product or service and I say, take a discount, I've lost money. So the contract is being sold at a discount. Money is being lost in the face of limitations. So yes, stop the contract. Can you think of any other point again? Particularly for no, don't stop the contract. Why? You could find other reasons. Conclusion. From the foregoing analysis, it will not be advisable that CSC Co breaches the contract with Encompass Health. Full stop. I will score 4/4. If I don't score 4/4, I'll definitely pass this requirement. And that's okay. Most people will read this requirement and say, which this one is what? They will go and never come back, and they will lose 4 marks. And 4 marks is 8% of what you need to pass your exams. 8% of 50 is 4. All right. Explain what the line, okay, requirement C, and please, these guys take their time to write questions. I've already told you, with the greatest of respect and apologies to all of us here, look at the way our questions are asked in primary school, in junior high school, in senior high school, in university. Look, take your time. This is different. This section of the scenario relates to requirement C. So now when I come to requirement C, this is when I'm going to spend time on this. I'm not going to be spending time on this when I'm doing requirement A and B. Most people will be wasting time reading all of this, even when they are answering requirement A and B. Several months later, the demand for both cakes and cookies has increased significantly to 20,000 and 15,000 units per month, respectively. However, CSC Co has lost the contract with Encompass Health and after suffering from further shortages of supply of bitter, singer, and of its labor force, now multiple limiting factors. I know where the examiner is heading towards. Multiple limiting factors. CSC Co has decided to stop making shakes at all. Okay, I know from the classroom that when I'm talking about multi-limiting factors, there must be only two products. One will be plotted on the x-axis and the one will be plotted on the y-axis. So I'm not surprised that the examiner is telling me that they stopped making shakes. They stopped making what? Shakes. And now they are concentrating on only cakes and cookies. CSC Co now needs to use linear programming to work out the optimum production plan for cakes and cookies for the coming month. The variable X is being used to represent cakes and the variable Y to represent cookies. So cakes is on the X-axis, cookies on the Y-axis. The following constraints have been formulated and a graph representing a new production problem has been drawn. Singer, you understand that, 0.25 to make a cake and 0.5 to make a cookie. The maximum available is 12K. Bitter, 0.5 grams to make a cake, 0.2 grams to make a cookie, and the maximum available is 12,500. Labor, 0.1 hours to make a cake, 0.12 hours to make a cookie, and the total number of labor hours available is 3K. You cannot make more than 20,000 cakes, and you cannot make more than 15,000 cookies. Non-negativity, you must produce at least something on, okay, you cannot produce less than 0, so you cannot produce a negative product. Now, this all have been plotted for you. Labor is labeled, singer is labeled, bitter is labeled, the demand for cakes is the vertical line. And you have some other line, the C equals 2.6S plus 1.75Y. For 4 marks, explain what the line labeled this on the graph is and what the area represented by the points O, A, B, C, D means. Exam technique, I won't go answering the question without planning. Explain what the line on the graph is. So highlight, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And that little word end can make a whole difference in my marks. And what the area represented by the points O, A, B, C, D means. Highlight, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Now, I am sure that I'm going to answer the 2 parts of the question. Presumably, 2 marks each. Most people will start work. Oh, the line labeled C equals 2.6S plus 1.7Y on the graph means that a unit of cakes, that's product X, generates a contribution of $2.60 and cookies generates $1.75 of contribution. This is the ISO contribution line. This is the ISO contribution line and represents what would be used to calculate total contribution at the optimum production plan. Friends, 2 marks. I've written 2 sentences. I'm okay. I won't go on again. If you ask me to write answer to this question again tomorrow, I may write something I may not write the same words, but I'll try to express the same ideas. What am I saying? We all will write different things, but in the end, we'll be talking about the same thing anyway. I've explained what the 2.6 and the 1.7 stand for. I've explained the whole line. It's called the ISO contribution line, and it will be used to find the total contribution when we know the number of X and the number of Y to produce at the optimal point. 2 sentences, I'm done. So what the line label that stands for, without planning, by this time, I'm moving on to the next question. Oh, what did I say? I've just highlighted and did a Control B to bold and a Control U to underline. Did I have to underline? Not really. But I just love to do that. What the area represented by the points O, A, B, C, D means. What does this mean? O, A, B, C, D. That area, how is it called?
Is it the optimum production region?
The region. So it represents the feasible. It's called a feasible region. The feasible region. And shows. So the feasible region, when I stop there, is too short a sentence for 2 marks. So I'm trying to just expand it a bit. So that's how I write PM answers. Represents the, I am not penalized for typing errors. So long as it's not too different from what it means or what I mean. Represents the feasible region. If I stop there, that will not make sense. And shows the possible combinations. That shows the various possible combinations of products or production units, production units that can be made within the constraints that CSC Co has. Right. I've just written 1 sentence. Can I add 1 more sentence? That's how I'm behaving in the example. Can I add 1 more sentence? If I can, fine. If I cannot, probably I can still do something else that CSC Co has. Within this region, CSC Co has to work out the best point of operation, the optimum point of operation, and this would lie on any of the points A, B, C, or D, and can be found using the ISO contribution line. ISO contribution. Again, nobody is expecting you to write exactly this or something too close to this. The ideas must be expressed in simple sentences, and that is enough. All right, I've just answered a 4-marker requirement. 2 marks. Explain how the optimal production plan will be found using the line labeled C equals 2.6S plus 1.75Y and identify the optimum point from the graph. I'm doing 2 things for 2 marks. How do I ensure I do the 2? How the optimal production plan will be found. Control C to copy. That's requirement number B. And identify the optimum point from the graph. Copy For the sake of time, sorry, I would have to just talk without typing, but I will type my answer. I'll play back this recording to myself and type the answer somehow according to what I just said to you. How can the optimum production plan be found? The optimum production plan be found? Oh, this is what I hate about. Okay. There's something crazy about this, how it moves around here. Okay. The optimal production plan can be found by pushing the ISO contribution line C equals 2.6S plus 1.75Y outward, so that maintaining the slope between points A, B, C, and D, the last point within the region that it touches becomes the optimal point. And the number of units of X and Y, cakes and cookies at that point will be counted as the optimum production mix. This requirement is for 2 marks. I've just said one sentence, and I think that's enough. Identify the optimal point from the graph. Oh, there's something down there. Note, no calculations are needed for part C. Oh, so no calculations are needed. I've identified the optimal point. I'll just use my eyes, trying to push this on the, in fact, right here with me, I'm sitting here with myself. I've just put a straight edge along the ISO contribution line. And as much as possible, I'm trying to maintain the slope. Pushing it upwards, I've gotten to A first. I've gotten to B, D. Now looks like C is my optimum point. So I'll say, okay, the optimum point is point C, which is the intersection of the line demand for cakes and the labor constraint. So that is the optimal production point from the graph. Identify the point. They've not asked me to identify the units. So identify the point and I'm done. Somebody will go ahead and demonstrate all their knowledge that they have and use simultaneous equation at this point to write down the equation for demand for cakes and the equation for labor constraints, solve simultaneously to get a number of units of X and Y. That has not been asked. What has been asked is identify the point, not the mix of production. So 2 marks, that's it. Your time for work, let me be wrapping up quickly. Explain what a slack value is and identify from the graph. Now, that little word, end, is very important. Explain what a slack value is. I'll copy and paste that into my answer. Explain what a slack value is. I'll copy it. Identify from the graph where slack will occur. So I say where slack will occur as a result of the optimal production plan. So I'll say to the marker 4 marks. A slack value is the amount of or the quantity of a resource that is not used at the optimum point. I've explained what slack is. So the quantity that is left unused at the optimum point is called slack. I'm done. Where will slack occur? Well, slack will occur on any of the constraints that does not fall on point C. Point C is the intersection of the vertical line, demand for cakes, and the downward sloping line, labor. So slack will occur for beta, slack will occur for singer, and slack will occur for demand for cookies. I'm done. I was not asked to calculate them, so I will not calculate. In fact, the requirements and no calculations are needed for this part. Now, when you are rehearsing this, try to calculate it and see whether you can calculate the amount of slack and that kind of thing. Friends, beautiful question to revise limiting factor analysis, where graphs is drawn for you in the exam and you need to be interpreting the graph and all of that. There was a Twitter debrief of this particular question. I had wanted to let you watch the Twitter debrief, but something said, let me just do it with you. So I've done it with you. I'll look for the link for the Twitter debrief. Probably you could also get some idea from that to add to what I have done with you. So that if you do a good job on this, hopefully, if you get a question on this, you should be fine. Limiting factor analysis. We could not do the job plan for risk and uncertainty, ketone co, maximin, maximax, minimax regret, and the rest. I'll put it into a plan and communicate to you when we shall do that and other things that are left on the revision course. Any questions, guys?
Hi, Sergio.
Yes, please.
Please, can we go back to the linear programming slide?
Yeah, the graph.
The question, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see the slide, you said it's a resource, the resource that was used.
Yeah.
And you mentioned demand for cookies. I
Yes.
was wondering,
Yes.
because when you check the feasible region, you see it intersected labor at point B.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was wondering how it was a slack, because I know you said it's a resource that wasn't used at all.
Did I
And
say
from the graph, it seems
did I mention demand for cakes as one of the resources that would
demand.
I think I mentioned demand for cookies. If I mentioned cakes, then it was a slip of tongue. One moment, let me just
Yeah, I'm talking about.
You are talking about what? Cakes, right?
No, cookies.
Cookies, yes. So one moment, just a moment. Let me just pay attention to something here. Sorry about that. Yeah, you were mentioning demand for cookies, right?
Yeah, I was asking because that's what you mentioned demand for cookies and saying about wondering.
Yeah. So for example, if I say to you that the optimum point is point C, can you see point C clearly? Point C, can you see it clearly?
Yeah, I can see.
All right. That's the intersection of the vertical line, demand for cakes. And then there's downward sloping line, labor constraint. So all other constraints that don't fall on C will have some slack. So for example, demand for cookies will have slack because you see, the equation is that cookies you can make about 15,000. But with the optimal point C, you will not be making 15,000. So you have a capacity to do 15,000, but at point C, you are doing less than, you're even doing less than 10,000 for cookies. So if you are doing less than 10,000 for cookies, meanwhile, you can do 15,000. Let's imagine that calculation gave us 9,000. Then it means that you can do 15,000 for the market, but at the optimal point, you are doing only 9,000, say. So the 6,000 you are not making is a slack for you. Something you have capacity to do, you cannot do because of limiting factors. What you are not doing is a slack for you. Does it come clearer now?
Yes. Thank you.
So, okay, so the summary is that if you determine the optimum point, any constraint that does not fall on the optimal point will have slack. So those two constraints that give birth to the optimal point, we say they are binding constraints. If you like, call them critical constraints. Critical constraints will never have slack, but all others will have slack. And that is why demand for cakes will not have slack. You are making exactly the 20,000 the market wants. Labor will not have slack, meaning you are using all of the available hours. But ingredient single, ingredient beta, demand for cookies, all of this will have some slack because they fall outside point C. Now, own figure rule. If in my determination of the optimum point, I mistakenly said it was point D, then I'll be marked correct when I'm talking about slack, that labor will have slack, which is not true, but I'll score the mark. How do you call it? and the others will have slack. If I mistakenly say point B is the optimal point, and I score 0 for that answer, all my things that are saying that all other things outside point B are slack, they are not correct, but I'll be scoring full credit for it. So please, this is how you make use of the own figure rule to your benefit. So you can move a 48% to a 51, a 49 to a 50 or 52, rather than staying a little below the belt every time, for which happens to most people. So yeah, so when you started asking the question, I thought I had made a slip of tongue. I've committed a slip of tongue and ever mentioned that demand for cakes will have slack. No, it will not. It is the demand for cookies that will have slack. Beautiful question for practice in the lead up to the exams. Please make sure you do a good job on it on your own. Okay, any more questions, guys? All right.